Hello everybody, I'm Roger. Thank you very much for watching. In this video on root position part writing in 4 voices, we are going to go over an example that encompasses all of those 3 categories that were mentioned in earlier videos. Chordal root relationships by second, chordal root relationships by third, and chordal root relationships by fourth or fifth. In this example, which I've already written out the bass line plus the voicing for the first chord, we can take a look at this progression 1 to 6 starting out and realize that the root relationships between these 2 chords, that's not a B, is chordal root relationship by third, all right? And then moving from 6 to 4 with an E chord moving to a C chord, that is down a third again, and that is chordal root relationship by third again. And then finally we get something different, 4 to 5, C chord moving to a D chord, and that's the chordal root relationship by second. And then finally, the D chord moving to the G chord, the dominant to the tonic triad, we get root relationship by fourth or fifth. And so we've got all 3 root relationship possibilities represented in this example. And again, just to review, the chordal root relationships by second or third tend to be the most straightforward. We don't want to make life too complicated on ourselves. So in this particular progression of 1 to 6, the G chord, which has the notes G, B, and D, and the 6th chord, which has notes E, G, and B, the common tones are G and B. And again, these common tones for right now are going to be our friends. They're going to be very helpful. They're going to prevent us from doing all that parallel perfect octaves, unisons, and fifths that we're trying to avoid if we keep those common tones in the same voice whenever possible. And in this case, the common tones are G and B in the alto and soprano, so we'll keep them in the alto and soprano. There's no reason to move them. And then we have a complete tonic triad, but we don't have a doubled chordal root yet. And as mentioned before, with root position triads, the tendency is to double the chordal root. There are exceptions to that, but for right now, it will serve us well, so we can move that tenor from the D up to the E. All right? And we have chordal root relationship by third again here, moving from 6 to 4. The 4 chord is going to have C, E, and G as its notes, and the E is a common tone, and so is the G. So we'll keep those 2 tones in the same voice. The E, which is now in the tenor, for the 6th chord will remain in the tenor when we move to 4. And the other common tone, G, which is in the alto as part of the 6th chord, will remain in the alto when we move to 4. And again, we have a complete triad. Now all we need to do is move that soprano up by step to C to get our doubled chordal root. So again, don't make life complicated on ourselves. Let's just keep those common tones in the same voice for now. Now moving from 4 to 5, this is when our voice leading antenna really needs to go up, right? Because this is where we can really fall into the trap of writing many parallel octaves and fifths, all right? Whenever we have root motion by second, we are going to have 0 common tones. This 5 chord is going to have the notes D, F sharp, and A, and none of those pitches appear in the 4 triad, okay? So that means all the voices are going to have to move, and as we saw in an earlier video on root relationships by second, I showed you how it's very easy to fall into that trap. But if you don't remember how to handle this, what you need to do is move those upper 3 voices in contrary motion to the bass. Since the bass is moving up, we're going to move those upper 3 voices down, and we're going to move them to the closest available chord tone. So in this case, the E is going to move down to the closest available chord tone, which would be D. That gives us the doubled chordal root. The G will move down to F sharp, and the C in the soprano will skip down to the A. That gives us a complete dominant triad with a doubled chordal root. And we don't have any of those parallel octaves and fifths that we saw in the earlier video. Now we have that last chordal root relationship of a 4th or a 5th. The D is moving down to a G chord that's down a 5th. Also notice that going down a 5th would be the same as going up a 4th. You'd get the same G chord. And the notes in this chord are going to be G, B, and D. I have a little space to write those right here. And there is one potential common tone, the D. If you remember from my earlier video on chordal root relationships by fourth or fifth, there's those three subcategories, right? One of them involves keeping the common tone, which we can actually do here with the D in the tenor. And this is actually that first option that I talked about, that first subcategory where you keep the common tone and then you move the remaining two voices by step. This will work out well in this particular context. The leading tone, just be aware of that, is in the alto voice, and it is moving up by step to its tendency. I'm using method 1, which involves keeping the common tone and moving the remaining two voices by step. But we could also use method 2 here, which was the similar motion by second and third. I'm just going to circle it right there. The reason for this is because the leading tone is in an inner voice, so it doesn't have to resolve up. It would if it was in the soprano, but since it's in the alto, it doesn't have to. And if we want to have more tonal closure at the end of this example by ending on scale degree 1 in the soprano, we would use method 2 here, which involves similar motion by second and third in the upper voices, which would look like this. Notice that the upper three voices are moving either by melodic second or third, right? The soprano is moving down a step to G, the altos moving by a melodic skip of a third from F sharp to D, and same thing in the tenor, melodic third skip from D to B. So here's an example that uses all three of those categories from chapter 6 in terms of chordal root relationships for root position, part writing in 4 voices. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe.